Hello and welcome to The Extra Shot. My name is Charlie.
And I'm Marshall. Before we start with today's news, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Extra Shot LTU. We have a wonderful show today, Charlie.
We
do you want
do.
to start us off with the news headlines?
Yes. A 24-year-old man has been placed in a medically induced coma after he was shot in the stomach outside of an apartment complex in Bridgewater, Tasmania. Police suspect that this was a premeditated attack as the gunman shot the victim at close range before fleeing the scene. A burnt-out Holden Commodore in a nearby street is believed to have been used in the shooting. No arrests have been made at this time. In other news, the federal government has announced that 60 drought-affected councils across Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria will be given $1 million each in a scheme by the government to help struggling farmers. These grants will help communities struggling in the wake of Australia's worst drought in 50 years. The government has also announced that the amount that farmers can borrow in low-interest loans will be doubled from $1 million to $2 million. This announcement comes 2 weeks after the federal government revealed a $190 million relief package for drought-affected communities. A 4-year-old boy in Epping has burned down his house. The boy took a piece of paper and set it alight on the stove while his parents were in another room. The mother of the boy claims that he had been trying to set fire to the house all week, but she thought that the boy was only joking. Fortunately, no one was harmed in the fire. What do you think about that story, Marshall?
It's an interesting story. You got to be careful with your kids. Obviously, you can be quite unsafe, and with kids, obviously their minds are still developing. Just got to keep an eye on them.
Always have to be watching.
Before we move on to our sort of next story, we've got to mention at the start of the show that today is a massive news in Australian politics. There's a big leadership spill inside the Liberal Party with Peter Dutton, former Cabinet Minister, challenging Malcolm Turnbull for the leadership. He didn't win, and we'll discuss that later with LaTrobe politics professor Nicholas Barry. Also, last week, Melbourne lost its most livable city in the world tag. What do you think about that?
I think it's pretty sad, actually, but I actually went out on campus to see what everyone here at LaTrobe thinks about this situation, so let's take a look. Okay, have you heard that Melbourne has lost its place as the world's most livable city?
No, I haven't. Oh my god, that's so dramatic. Why?
No.
I did actually. I saw it on the news last night.
I didn't know that actually. No.
I have actually. I saw it the other day.
Actually, I didn't heard about that because it seems like so many years it seems to be in a top one country only.
I did hear, and being a proud Melburnian, I'm very disappointed.
No, I haven't.
I have heard about it. On the news last night, I saw it and I was watching it. And personally, for me, we've gone to second, but I don't really have much of an opinion on it. I don't really care that much. It doesn't really change the way I view Melbourne whatsoever.
Well, do you want to guess who has taken our place?
Sydney.
Oh, Sydney.
Maybe somewhere in Sweden.
I'd have no clue, but I'm going to guess somewhere in Scandinavia because they don't even have to pay tax, I'm pretty sure.
Maybe New South Wales?
No, it's somewhere in Europe.
Italy.
Italy's a country?
It's in Europe.
Amsterdam or something.
It's in Austria.
Yes.
Vienna in Austria. Their coffee will never live up to Melbourne's coffee anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, it's Vienna in Austria. So how does this make you feel? Are you upset that we've lost our place?
Yeah, feels definitely upset because we are continuously winning from so many years, but now some other country win the award. So it means we made some mistake. We are getting lax somewhere. So we need to improve those areas.
No, I was a bit surprised, but I'm not too shocked in that it's a city in Europe. I think Europe's got a lot of very beautiful cities, and that, you know, if ever we're going to get overtaken, it would be by one of those.
Personally, I don't really care that much, I think a lot of people are like me. They don't really care that much. And having not been to that many cities around the world, I'm looking forward to going to Vienna and having a suss of Vienna, see if it actually is much better than Melbourne.
So why do you think that Melbourne has lost its place? Like, what are some examples you can think of?
Can't think of any.
There's nothing bad about Melbourne?
No, I can't think of anything wrong with Melbourne at the moment.
Austria is making some increasing their security or health policy or something.
Increased crime rates, shit traffic, can't decide what they want to do for projects and stuff. East-West Link's gone under. Somehow they miraculously got the rail lines done, except that's going to be going for a few years if they're trying to get all the way out to bloody Doreen.
'Cause weather's shit. I mean, weather's bad.
The crime rates have gone up.
The traffic has gone up so much. I think traffic has got to be one of the most reasons for behind this. Yeah.
Increased crime rate, or whether it's Vienna's lowered crime rate, I'm not too sure, but if I had to hazard a guess, that would be it.
Well, the reason Vienna took our place is because the lower terrorism rates in Europe now. So,
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
what do you think that Melbourne could do to get our place back?
I would say lower the crime rate, reduce traffic. Our freeways are pretty trafficky. Even the public transport system, mate, get it a little bit more reliable to allow the citizens to get from A to B in a more efficient way.
I think more train. That would be the obvious one.
Maybe a better public transportation system.
I'll just get on top of things, you know. Yeah, it's really gotten out of hand with all the crime and stuff. Every day I see that the crime just keeps going up, and even in where I live, it's just getting worse and worse.
What do you think that we could do to fix these problems and get ourselves back on the top?
Get Daniel Andrews the out of government.
Build a Disneyland. I think that if you do a Disneyland, like, most people want to come here. Plus, I've never been, so build a Disneyland in Melbourne. Get onto it.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Charlie. It's a wonderful package. We've got our sports reporters in to talk about the EPL, but before we do, she mentioned there in the package a Disneyland. If we were to have a Disneyland in Melbourne, where would you put it?
What do you think about that, boys?
You'd put it straight in the heart of the city, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like next to the G, or
Where would you fit
just
it?
get
Where
rid
would
of
you fit it, do you reckon, Sal?
Just get rid of the old Ferris wheel in that harbour town. It's all
Oh,
dead.
yeah.
anyway.
That Ferris wheel
That's a good
is
idea.
a farce.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Absolute
is.
farce.
It's actually not doing anything for us. To be
No.
honest with you.
Anyway, we're here to talk about the EPL, the English Premier League. We'll start with you, Billy, because you are the Liverpool fan, close to
yes.
my heart. How did they go on the weekend? I think they did really well, but I'll let you explain.
They went excellently, Marshall. I'm glad you asked. Had the played overnight against Crystal Palace. Had the late game. Always a tough trip to Selhurst Park. Got a win, 2-0. Goals at the end of each half to Milner from the spot and Mane. So that moves them into second spot, right on the heels of Man City in the early start of the Premier League season.
They had a big win themselves. You want to tell us how they
Oh
went?
yes, a huge win. They look close to unbeatable. I would have thought. What do you think, Sahel? What did you see there?
You
their
got
performance?
Aguero at his best, I'm telling you. Manchester City look very, very dangerous. You can also see that everybody else on the team, they're not really lacking, especially with Kevin De Bruyne out, which is their best player by far. So like they have tools on top of tools on top of tools. They can bring anyone off the bench and they'd still do as well because Bernardo Silva, man, on his game. He's on his game.
It's pretty amazing that you can lose a player of Kevin De Bruyne's ilk. He's probably in the top handful of players in the world and not even miss a beat and not even look as though they miss him at all. Silva he made his return in the midfield and he was on the top of his game straight away. He was incredible. They're even getting assists from their goalkeeper. That's how well they're going at the minute.
Wow.
They had Edison. He was booting goal kicks out to Aguero, and he was slotting them, chipping the keeper. So that's how well they're going. Another element which it's scary to think they may have actually improved on last season, but it looks as though they have. The extra element they've got Benjamin Mendy, who missed nearly the entire of last season with a ruptured ACL, which didn't stop him. While he was injured, he still managed to win the Premier League and the World Cup without even kicking a ball. So that's a pretty good result.
That's unbelievable.
He was playing down the left wing and whipping in crosses for the likes of Aguero and Jesus, and they look even more dangerous if possible than they did last year.
Yeah, like just to be honest with you, I'm suffering still because Aguero and his hat-trick has absolutely killed my fantasy team. But apparently some bloke put him as his triple captain, which means he ended up racking up 60 points.
How many points do you get for a goal, and how does that... I'm not a big...
Explain for some viewers who may not know what you're talking about, including me.
I think you get 5 points per goal if you're a striker.
For strikers, yep.
But he scored 3 and I think assisted on 1 as well.
He may have. He got 3 bonus points as well, so he ended up with 20 in total, which is absurd in one
yeah,
game.
isn't that a
to
lot
get
for
20.
soccer?
That's in Fantasy Premier League. That's a
Yeah.
absurdly high
Yeah.
score. So the people that didn't captain him, such as our friend across the desk here,
I
would,
thought I was smart popping.
would have had a-
Montevic is captain.
Yeah.
would have had a tough week. I
Now,
think.
before we move on for Man City, Aguero, obviously the big question with him for the last few years has been his injury problems and whether he can stay healthy. If he stays healthy, are they your unfortunate tips? I know you're different. I don't support Man City. Are they your tips for the championship if Aguero can keep his form up and
With
stay
or
healthy?
without Aguero, I'm sorry, they're still gonna win. To be honest with you, they just look like their depth just doesn't end.
You see their bench on
Oh,
Saturday? They
God.
had Walker, Sane, Sterling, all these players on the
Mahrez.
bench.
These
that-
guys
Mahrez,
represent their country,
They'd
they
be
play in the World
the
Cup
best
soon.
player in just about any other club in the league.
Yeah, you got Mahrez, who won Player of the Season, I think 2 seasons ago,
Yep, in when Leicester won it.
and he's sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
What does that tell you?
Unbelievable.
If
They got
it
too
was
much
if
depth.
an Australian rules team, it's like you have 2 All-Australian teams running out.
Oh my God,
yeah,
yeah.
it's quite crazy.
It's too bad Australian rules foot is just in Australia.
Yeah.
There's not that much depth. Like,
So we'll move on. The game of the weekend was Chelsea versus Arsenal. The late
Our
one on
man,
Saturday.
That's it, no?
the smoking Italian there on the bench.
yeah,
Tell us about
he's on it,
Chelsea.
mate.
I know he's close to your heart because he's a bit of a character. But
Yeah.
let us know.
Well, as you saw, we took home in another derby. We've taken another win. We
Against Arsenal, was it?
I think it was Arsenal's a big team too. Don't
Huge
forget
team.
that.
New
Like,
manager as well.
yeah, and Chelsea was actually, I think it was 2-0 up in the first.
Yeah, the first 20 minutes was completely one-way traffic. At Chelsea, they led 2-0, and Arsenal had genuinely barely touched the ball.
I know.
Pedro and Morata with the goals, a
Yeah.
couple of Spaniards to get Chelsea 2-0 up, and then the game flipped on its head.
You know you're struggling though when Morata scores against you guys. To be honest with you, that guy can't.
He had
Can't catch a
He
cold.
struggled last year after he signed with Chelsea. I know that for a
Yeah.
fact. So him get on the board, it's quite unfortunate for Arsenal. The old Gunners.
It's the curse of the number 9 apparently at Chelsea. Fernando Torres copped it as well.
We've
He-
got out of the number 9, so that might help him. So
He has it?
May have
Oh.
switch to number 29. So
For the
see if that
superstitious
does
people,
anything
yeah.
good. So what happened after he went 2-0 up? It was almost as though the game completely changed. Arsenal just got back into it and
It's
put a lot of
usual
pressure
Chelsea,
on.
you know, usual Chelsea. They make teams think that they've got a chance and then they end up snatching it. You know what I mean? How fun would it be to win 3-0? Like that's not that fun. Let's be honest. How about 3-2 scoring in the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game to
Yeah.
actually
That's more interesting.
that rips your soul out. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's true.
That's how you leave teams. You leave them just dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
now-
the best way to do it.
I heard quickly before we touch on Manchester United and their performances, but I was reading during the week that Sarri now has a smoking. He has his own personal smoking square. Is that true?
Mate,
Can you give us the lowdown of
that
what's
is
going on
very
there?
true. Actually, you know what? To be honest with you, look at the bloke. Wouldn't you give him his own personal smoking
He
square?
looks like a mafioso type.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I wouldn't play with him, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
Let him. If he wants a smoking circle, give him a smoking circle. Don't worry about the square.
Chelsea's 3-2 win. That gives them their second win from 2. So that's what puts them in third behind City and Liverpool. So they seem to be the top 3 teams at the moment. A result which put plenty of smiles on the faces, certainly on the members of this panel, with a couple of Liverpool supporters and a Chelsea one, is the Man United loss at Brighton, 3-2. We'll go into plenty of depth with this one. What do you see? How do you see it?
How good is
Sahil?
it to see Mourinho just in his demise? He's
Deja
done,
vu.
man. Oh, it's lovely. He has his seasons, and then he absolutely stuffs it up, doesn't he? He just yeah, it's good to see him though. You know, back to his
Especially
his
the
worst,
history as
you
a
know?
Chelsea fan, it's probably
100%.
don't want to see him succeed too much as a manager.
How long do we think he has left? Is the clock ticking on his time as United
if he
boss?
stays in the top 6, I think he has till January, and then he can spend some money. But if he doesn't stay in the top 6, he'll
I don't
be
think
gone
money's
before
the issue. Have a look at the spine that they've got together. It was nearly all assembled by him. You look at Bailly, Lindelof at the back. You got Fred, Pogba in the middle, Lukaku up front. So I don't think money's the issue. I think it's a ticking time bomb over there at United, and it's fantastic to see.
I reckon it's just until Mourinho runs out of excuses, and
Just
then
about.
they'll end up showing him the door. You know.
There'll be no excuses, and he'll park the bus, and it won't work, and then he's completely out of excuses. So I
Okay.
appreciate you coming in. And
Thanks for coming in, boys.
Charlie,
No
give us a
problem.
rundown what we have left on the show.
Yes, so right after this break, we'll be back with politics professor Dr. Nicholas Barry to discuss today's leadership spill, and we will have the Humans of Latrobe segment. Stay tuned.
We've got 20 seconds.
And we are back with Dr. Nicholas Barry to discuss the leadership spill. Thank you for coming in studio.
It's a pleasure.
So, do you want to just give us a rundown of what has happened this morning, the news?
Well, this morning the Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull brought on a leadership challenge, and from Peter Dutton, who's Minister. The challenge from Dutton was unsuccessful, and as a result, Dutton has resigned from the cabinet, and that's basically the state of play at the moment.
Now, with the sort of the state of play as we're sort of talking about, I've been hearing sort of reports that in order for Dutton to challenge Turnbull, he'd have to resign from the cabinet beforehand, or is that the case, or is it the case that Turnbull had sacked him afterwards? Could you please explain that, maybe elaborate that for a bit more?
Well, reportedly, Turnbull has said that he offered Dutton the chance to continue in the ministry, but Dutton has resigned from the cabinet.
Is that unusual? I know it doesn't really happen too often for someone to challenge your leadership and to keep them close in the cabinet like that. Is that an unusual thing to see happen?
It's relatively unusual. I guess it's a hope that if you could keep him in the cabinet, then that will prevent any further leadership instability from occurring. Probably all along, pretty unlikely that Dutton would accept that offer. What's more likely to happen now is he's gone to the backbench, and the precedent is usually then you can then use that position to continue to destabilise the government, heading towards what he would hope would be a successful leadership challenge in the not too distant future.
Mm-hmm. So I read that Peter Dutton claimed that he challenged the Prime Minister because he didn't want Bill Shorten to become the Prime Minister. So do you think there's any truth to that for the reasons behind it?
There's, as with most leadership challenges, there's a kind of a variety of things bubbling away there that kind of contribute to it. The immediate catalyst is was the opinion poll that came out on Sunday night, which was pretty bad for the government. And following on from the by-elections a few weeks ago, which were also bad for the government, this has kind of led to a sense that Turnbull is leading them towards defeat at the next election. Now that's, definitely it's not looking good for the government at the moment. There's other factors going on there as well. One of those, a big one, is the recent national energy agreement, which also involves issues because that is linked into cuts to carbon emissions that are part of that. Turnbull's main opponents are the Conservative wing within the Liberal Party, who are very opposed to the cuts in emissions that were linked into that national energy guarantee. And as a result of that, that's also contributed to the decision to bring him down. So some have suggested there's a dispute over the ideological direction of the party as well, which is also linked into this, not just short-term electoral considerations.
I was sort of hearing that in the coverage that it was sort of the Conservative wing of the Liberal Party and the moderates, sort of the Malcolm Turnbull-led moderates. Would you suggest perhaps someone like a Tony Abbott, who is also obviously another backbencher who's come from that leadership position, which Malcolm Turnbull ousted him for? Do you reckon he would have played a part in sort of pushing Dutton's challenge today? Or what are your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, Abbott is obviously in the Conservative wing of the party. He's been a critic of the energy agreement that Turnbull signed up to, that Turnbull was initially proposing. So there was threats of crossing the floor of Parliament as well to vote against the legislation. So this is already, clearly he's kind of part of this kind of push. Whether or not he's likely to actually come back as Prime Minister, it looks like Dutton is the one they've picked to do that. But, it's sometimes not safe to predict anything in Australian politics these days. So,
So this vote was a secret ballot, is that right?
I can't remember actually the details, whether or not they was a secret ballot this morning or not. There's definitely a heated room party room debate leading up to that. Yeah.
Do you think that after this there's some tension now within the government because the Prime Minister knows that there are some people within his party who went behind his back? Or
that's right. Yeah, and you're right. Sorry, it was a secret ballot. Yeah, it was. There clearly you had 35 people voting against the Prime Minister. Now, Turnbull won relatively comfortably, but 35 is still a lot, and it means that suggests, there's significant opposition to him as leader. What also tends to happen in these situations is the opinion, because the government instability is never a good look for a government, as the last Labor government found out as well, that tends to then be reflected in the opinion polls that come out. So we're likely to see further bad polling for the government over the next couple of weeks. That just increases the pressure on the Prime Minister and makes the chance of a successful leadership challenge even more likely. So you kind of end up in a sort of spiral of, electoral disaster.
That's sort of stemmed, as you said, from the instability. That's either you could lead to Turnbull getting ousted by his own party, but also as we look forward to the next election, Labor must be sort of licking its chops, sort of thing, ready to spring on to the next election, because instability is not what the voters sort of want. It's the complete opposite. So how do you see Labor sort of attacking this or going on the front foot? How do you see their approach sort of going?
Going the disunity is death line is a cliche, but it's a very accurate one when it comes to politics. They'll be pushing the line of, look, the government. How can the government run the country when it can't run itself? That kind of line, which is used against them when they were in office, and also had leadership turmoil. That same line of argument will be used here again. So you're right. They will be licking their chops, I think.
I can imagine, because again, if Dutton had won today, there would have been the 6th or 7th new Prime Minister in the last decade, and that was tied for the first. It's tied with the first decade of the Federation when it was first came up. So it's really, again, as we said, unstable. So not a stable climate in Australian politics, which is something we really want to get back to. So I can't wait for that to happen.
There's been it's incredible. There has been a really rapid turnover of prime ministers since 2010, as you mentioned. What's also interesting is the role that climate, energy policy, and particularly disputes over climate change have actually played in bringing the downfall of all of those leaders. The whole reason that Turnbull lost his position when he was opposition leader. The whole reason Abbott took over was in part because of dissatisfaction at his handling of the emissions trading scheme. That was also a factor that contributed in a different way, because of the politics of it, contributed in some ways to Rudd losing his position as Prime Minister as well. And then contributed to the difficulties Julia Gillard had with the carbon tax when that came in. So it's been a big factor in basically bringing down three or four of the last key figures in Australian politics.
So thank you very much for coming in,
Thank
Doctor.
you.
Have a wonderful day, and hope for some stability in the future. So.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks very much.
Thanks,
guys.
That's right. After this short break, we will have a very special guest for Humans of Latrobe. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Extra Shot. This week for our Humans of Latrobe segment, we have Tanique Dimsevska. Wait, how do you pronounce your last name, Tanique?
It's Dimchevska.
Dimchevska, I knew that.
The C is a ch. It's a silly Balkan thing.
I knew that. Okay, well, welcome, Tanique.
Thanks for having me, guys.
That's all right. So, Tanique, you're the editor of the magazine you've got there,
Yes,
Rabelais.
I have 3 of our lovely copies here.
Yeah, how do you pronounce that?
This is Rabelais.
Rabelais.
Oh,
I was right.
I thought we were Rabelais. I was ready as I could see it.
So Rabelais is actually a completely student-run magazine, which is awesome. And so I'm lucky enough to be the director of content. So that means that I really just take submissions from people and I make sure that they all get in there. And so this one is our most recent copy, which is the magazine copy. There's a whole bunch of different games and stuff in there as well, which is really fun. And also we have our Rabel GQBT, that one. And also the Life edition. And next up is our Multicultural edition. So if anyone wants to submit, you can just go on the Rabelais Facebook page and submit to us.
So anyone can submit at all?
Anyone from the whole of Latrobe,
I was going to ask,
even the alumni.
What was the process to getting into this magazine? But you just
Yeah,
explain it
how
right
do you-
there.
Yeah,
How do you
yeah.
send it into the Facebook page, or do you have a Twitter?
No, we don't have a Twitter at the moment. We do have an Instagram, Rabelais Magazine. And
So how do you filter through all the different stories that come in?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because we have a team of 2 editors, our chief of staff, me, also Sarah Ramontanis. We have like a whole group of us that go through everything. We have to edit all of the submissions. And really just buffer through everything that we get. And it ends up being a really quality magazine. And it's for free on campus, everyone. Rabelais's for free. Come and get it. You can find it around the
Agora, the library.
the Agora, the
Anywhere,
library,
really. I'm sure
around
there's
the
some in some
humanities
classrooms
buildings.
too, so.
Everywhere. Yeah. It's a really good initiative to get involved in because a lot of things in the past, Rabelais hasn't been really big for the Journalism Media Arts Society, which is what we're all part of here. But this year we actually have had so many submissions from people in JMAC, which is awesome because you can get published. If you're in Rabelais, you've officially been published.
Yeah,
and we
that's
also have
exciting.
an online rabelais.com, .com.au, so you can actually be published online as well.
Is it? How long has it been running for? 'Cause I know it's been here since I started at LaTrobe.
Yeah,
but can you
yeah.
tell us a little bit about the history?
I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but yeah, no, this is 50 years.
Wow.
This is our
Gee,
50
that's
years.
amazing.
Yeah, so that's why we went for the magazine format. That's the good thing. Because we're student run, we really can do whatever we want.
Exactly.
We just have to go, of course, via the Upstart guidelines. But really, when it comes to the format of it, we can do whatever we want, which is why we opted for this magazine format. Yeah.
So on a personal note, you are a consultant for Dream Life Photo and Video. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Charlie Wright viewed my LinkedIn
I
profile.
really did.
Yeah, I do. So I love working for Dream Life. Dream Life is a wedding photo and video company. So we are actually one of the top 10 wedding photography companies in Australia. My background is in photography. I worked for Seen to Believe before that, which you can see on my LinkedIn as well.
I'm sure he'll do his journalistic research.
I will.
next
Charlie,
time as
quite
well.
a journalist. But really, for Dream Life, I'm doing public relations, which is something that I've learnt here at LaTrobe. With Natalie McKenna, she was one of my teachers for like a social media class, and then I was like, oh, I can actually take this somewhere and do something with it. Applied for a job, being able to communicate, which is something else I've learned here by doing this show even. It's something that I put into my role there, and it's a lot of fun. I get to travel around Victoria and go and talk to wedding venues and promote a really great product.
That's so cool. That's a really cool job.
Yeah, it's a job that I didn't even know existed, really.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many jobs in our industry that we're working in that we don't even know exist yet. So I think that's
I'm sure in the future there'll be more of the same
Definitely.
popping up. Be like, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Definitely.
So I'm keeping an eye out for that for sure. How do you balance that sort of stuff? It's a job, it's uni, and you're laughing because I'm assuming
It's a lot of different
it
stuff.
can be a bit stressful.
Yeah.
But please tell us how you balance that.
Yeah, this is the most common question I get,
I
really.
can imagine. I'm sorry.
I'm actually overloading at the moment as well. I shouldn't say this, but I'm
really?
doing 6 subjects. So being able to balance that plus work, plus like life, like my boyfriend of 3 years and my family, it is a lot. But I think being able to while keeping motivated on this kind of thing, like being interested in what we're doing and what I'm doing in particular, it's I think that's the main thing that keeps me going. Because really, if I didn't like what I was doing, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today, Tanique. Do you have any social media you want to plug while you're here?
Yeah. You can follow my Instagram. It's pretty much just a mood board at the moment, but it's t.ynique. It's Tanique with a dot in it. So yeah, if you want to, you can follow me.
I love your Instagram.
Thanks.
I also love her LinkedIn by the research you
Oh,
say
yeah.
as well.
You can go look for that.
Trying to be professional.
Aren't we all?
We
Thank
try.
you, Tanique.
Students, we try.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No worries. Charlie, today's been a huge day of news.
It has.
Now, this week we want to keep stable after the leadership spill of today.
We do, yeah.
What are some things you're going to do to try and keep stable? You're going to try some balancing exercises.
You know what? Yeah, I'm going to do some yoga, I think.
Do the splits, downward dog, up dog.
Sure, I'm going to attempt it.
I would attempt it too. Why not?
Okay.
For all the viewers, yoga, 100%.
Yeah, try
Let's do it.
yoga. So thank you for watching today. Remember to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at ExtraShotLTU for updates and sneak peeks of the show throughout the week. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. I'm Marshall.
I'm Charlie.
Have a good
See you
day.
next time.